Hello cooking crew and welcome to Prep's Place. I'm going to show you today how to make our first competition item, a feta cheese and spinach omelet using only one egg. So to start with, we need to look at our equipment. We've got a small, I believe this is about an 8-inch, maybe even a 6-inch non-stick pan. You can use Teflon. I kind of like these green pans because they really let eggs slide nice and easy, which you'll find is helpful when you're rolling your omelet out of your pan. You want to always make sure that when you're working with non-stick pans that you don't use metal utensils, so I'm going to have a wooden spoon there to work with to help me with this. I need a little bowl which I'm going to mix my egg in. I need a fork with which to mix it. So that's all we need for right now for this recipe as far as equipment goes, is our pan, a wooden spoon, a fork, and a bowl. Pretty simple so far, eh? Okay, so we're going to turn our pan on medium heat, okay? You can do a little bit higher heat, a little bit lower heat. It all depends on whether you want browning on your omelet or not, if you want your eggs to brown. Now, classically teaching, they don't want to see any browning on an egg. A French rolled omelet has no browning on it. It's one of the judging qualities. So I'm going to try to make this omelet without any brown on it. But some people like brown. Some people like the flavor of brown. A simple folded omelet, which is more of an American style omelet, oftentimes has a nice little browning on the eggs. It's up to you. But if you want it not to be brown, keep your heat medium or a little bit under medium, and that's one of the tricks to getting there. First thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cook our spinach down, because whenever you're adding vegetables to an omelet, when those vegetables cook, they're going to give off juices. And when they give off those juices, it does not mix very well with the eggs themselves. It'll mess up the texture of your eggs. A lot of times you'll have a lot of juice running out on your plate. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't necessarily taste very good. So what we want to do is we want to take a half a teaspoon, and you can measure that. I'm just going to put a little drop in there of olive oil. Olive oil is a nice healthy oil. This is a virgin olive oil. It is a unsaturated oil, and I like to cook with that most of the time. Here I have 2 cups of spinach. Now when I say 2 cups, this is a quart measure, so it's halfway filled. It's half of a 4-cup measure. You want to actually press the spinach down a little bit because it's really fluffy. I can make that same amount of spinach look like it's 4 cups of spinach. But no, I want actually 2 cups of pressed down spinach, because you're going to be amazed at how when you put this spinach in this pan and you start cooking it, it shrinks because it gives up a lot of juice, which you're going to let evaporate, but it's going to shrink. So I've got my oil heating up here. I'm going to put my spinach in the pan here. Now this spinach is called baby spinach, which means basically that the leaves on the spinach are pretty small and they have this thin little stem on them. You can buy other spinaches where the leaves are much bigger, they're more wrinkly, and they've got this big fibrous stem on the end of that. You can use that spinach as well. The question you got to ask is, do you want those fibrous stems in your omelet or not? If you use the other type, some people would actually cut off those stems, but in this case, if you use the baby ones, you don't have to worry about it because this stem is nice and tender and soft, and it's not a problem when you cook it down to eat it. And we're going to let this just warm up in heat, and I'm going to stir it with my spoon. We're going to season it a little bit, not very much. Too much salt on spinach gets it salty pretty quick. So we just want to sprinkle on a little bit of salt, and we're going to use a little bit of fresh ground black pepper. You don't have to use fresh ground pepper, but I will tell you, it makes a difference. One of my chef instructors when I first went to school said, if all you ever use is fresh ground black pepper, you're automatically a better cook. So I got my fresh ground black pepper in there. I'm letting this cook, and while this is cooking, I'm going to start whipping my egg. I've got 1 egg. Since it's a 1-egg omelet, I actually like to use at least an extra large egg or maybe a jumbo egg, because once you start getting in the medium and small eggs, it's a much smaller and harder to make omelet to roll. I'm going to crack this egg and get it in a bowl. You want to make sure you look in the bowl that you don't have any little egg chips like I just had drop in there. You want to pick those out with either your finger or with a fork. Of course, I washed my hands really good before I started cooking, which you should always do, or you should use gloves. So now I've got my egg in my bowl here, okay? And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to actually take my fork, and I'm going to start whipping it just like this. Let's see if I can get a good picture for you. I'm just taking the fork and whisking it just like this. Now you want to make sure that you actually do this for a good minute, because when you whip an egg together, those whites don't get in there too good and they come off in like big globs. And then when you make your omelet, it doesn't have a real consistent texture to it. So you want to actually whip this egg for 30 to 60 seconds so that you get a nice smooth egg. And when you can lift it and it comes off in kind of a smooth stream like that without big globs, you know you pretty much have it where you want it. Okay? So I've got my eggs here. Now I like to season my eggs before I put them in the pan. I put a little bit of salt, not much. I'm going to put a little bit of extra fresh ground black pepper in there as well. Give it one more stir, get the texture in there. Now, we take a look at our spinach in our pan. You will see that instead of being nice and fluffy, it's already gotten much, much smaller. Much smaller. And we want to cook this until it's all wilted and there's no extra moisture in the pan. Sometimes there will be more moisture than other times. If you use the bigger spinach, you get a little bit more moisture. But you definitely want to cook as much moisture out of there as you can. That's almost done. It doesn't take very long. You're going to cook the spinach for maybe 1 to 2 minutes. You don't have to necessarily kill it. Now, I've got this spinach pretty much where I want it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my plate and I'm going to go ahead and slide my spinach onto my plate. It's going to go back in the pan in just a minute. Now, I've already got the olive oil and whatnot in my pan, so I'm not going to add any extra fat to this. I'm just going to take my egg and I'm going to pour it in the pan. And here's where the technique really comes in. You want it to cover the bottom of your pan. You want to take it and you want to take your spoon and just go in little small circles around your egg. That way the eggs kind of don't coagulate up so much and they get more tender and they get a little bit more creamier when you do this. It ends up with a more tender egg. And then once you're going to watch, you're going to start to see that the eggs are going to start to firm up and cook and coagulate, they call it. As that starts to happen, you can stop now stirring your spoon in circles. If you had created any holes when you were doing that stirring, take a little bit of the wet stuff and take the back of your spoon and just smooth over those holes so it's completely covered. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to put the cheese in the omelet first so that the cheese has a good opportunity to melt a little bit. Now I've got some feta cheese here. Okay, this is actually a Greek feta cheese. This omelet would be considered kind of a Greek omelet because of the feta cheese and the spinach. It's almost like a spinach pie filling. So we're going to take our feta cheese, and what I like to do when I do these little omelets is I like to just sprinkle it all over the omelet so that it rolls up throughout it instead of just being a big glob in the middle. Then we're going to take our spinach and we're going to start doing the same thing. You want to kind of spread it out. You can use tongs. You can use a fork to put this down. Just like that. That's a little bit easier than using your fingers because it's a little bit warm. We're going to put a coating of spinach down there. Okay, now I'm going to take my pan and lift it up, okay, and all you have to do is kind of move it around in circles. See, it's a non-stick span, so the omelet's actually going to move. You're going to take one side of it and just start to turn it over like this. And see, I had my heat a little too high, and I'm starting to get just a little browning, which is okay. It's all a matter of what you like. I'm going to go ahead and take my plate. I'm going to let it slide onto the plate like this, and then I'm going to fold the omelet over just like that. And there we have a beautiful 1-egg omelet, which, believe me, is a big enough portion to have a very nice breakfast. It's nicely rolled, it's got a smooth surface, it's got a little color to it. You can have that if you want or if you don't want to have to it. But after this, you just sit down, take a nice bite of this thing, and see how good it tastes. That is delicious. You know, this is the base recipe. Remember, you can do anything you want with it. You can try other vegetables, you can try other cheeses. Go out there, be creative, have fun, and whip yourself up one heck of a great breakfast. Have fun, crews. I'll be at your school soon. Take care.